I'm Professor Chi. I help people raise their vibration. In this video, I'm going to discuss a natural way you can increase your emotional intelligence through a breathing exercise known as condensing breathing. We live in a polarized world of positive and negative, or yin and yang as they say. All of us have problems of being too much or too little. Balance is always the success as a human being. Our ego, or that which likes to project out into the world, has trouble with that. It always feels like, oh, I need to be really strong or I need to retreat. But always it's a little bit of both. So another way to look at yin and yang is firmness and flexibility. That's like the verb of yin and yang. When it becomes more personal, we can think of it in terms of force and vulnerability. Modern life, vulnerability has taken a big hit. It seems very terrifying to be vulnerable. It's like, oh my goodness, if I be vulnerable, then people are going to take advantage of me. But the truth of the matter is, when we're too forceful, that's usually when people take advantage of you. It doesn't seem like that in the moment because force has always been sold as strength. But force is not strength, it's very brittle strength. Ideally, to have a balance, or the Tao, or the middle way that's neither too much or too little, is to have firmness within flexibility and flexibility within firmness. This is what the Tai Chi symbol is, where the yin-yang sign, there's a little dot of the opposite color inside of each field. That shows that there's firmness, there's yang within yin and yin within yang, or firmness within flexibility and flexibility within firmness. This balance, or this middle way, again, is always success. I feel it's important to talk yourself down or up, depending on where you're at, rather than being too firm or too flexible. When you find yourself being too firm, slow it down a little. When you find yourself being too flexible, speed it up a little. This can always be done. We are never in balance. Balance is something that is always being sought out. Everything is a spiral. It's moving upward. And if we end up too far one to the right or too far to the left, the spiral starts going like this. The orbit becomes ecliptical rather than perfectly round. So it seems like balance looks like it's just left or right, but it's a projection, it's a trajectory. And for the trajectory to make a spiral, it needs to stay balanced. So it's not just like, oh, now I'm balanced. No, the balance is continually moving. It's more like a gyroscope. If the gyroscope needs to be straight up and down, and it'll stay in one spot. As soon as the gyroscope starts to tilt one way or the other, it's flying all over the room. Our life is just like that. Every cell in our body looks just like a gyroscope. If they look at an atom inside of with an electronic microscope, it literally looks like a little tornado. We are made up of billions and billions of little tornadoes. Each one of those little tornadoes is like an image of how life really works. We're always in motion. Everything is always, even when you are completely still, things are in motion. This is the reason why balance is so important, because everything in life is a trajectory. So finding the Tao, or the middle way between firmness and flexibility, will create a movement or a trajectory that is even, that is easy to track, that will be effective, and it won't startle other people. And it will attract other people. Because when it starts to wobble, when things start to wobble, everybody knows. You can't hide that. We tend to think, oh, people aren't noticing. No, people are noticing. The things that people notice, not your words so much as how you're vibrating. The vibration that we give off always has the wobble in mind. You know, if we're feeling centered and everything is just fine and everything is spinning perfectly, we come off like that. As soon as we start to feel a little bit too much this way or a little less that way, then it comes off. The energy starts to fly off us in such a way that everybody notices. As soon as other people start to notice that you're out of balance, you panic. When we start to panic, then we wobble even more. So keeping track of where we're coming from is so much easier if we're in the center of our life that's spinning around and around us. This is inside of the spine. It's actually physiological. This is not a metaphor. We are actually coming from the center of our spine. The energy of our life force moves into this peripheral nervous system, out into the five senses, and it becomes the physical world. We are actually in the center. We are actually in there. When we start to move too far to the right or too far to the left, we're no longer in the middle and our life starts to wobble. We always have the opportunity at all times, at any second, every single moment is an opportunity to condense inward. We can do it with the breath, you know, pull yourself inward, become inward. When you're condensed inward, then you're in the center. When you're in the center, you can notice when things are starting to wobble. You'll notice when you're too strong. You'll notice when you're being too weak. When we're too strong and we know it, generally speaking, you don't think, oh boy, now it's time to back off. No, when you're in that forceful mode, you want to push harder. It's just human nature. And the same is for when we're too flexible. When we're too flexible, suddenly everybody knows you're too flexible. And they're all like, oh, let's get him now, jump on him now. And then the force is on you, and it becomes very difficult to center yourself at that moment. This is the reason why religions of all sorts and philosophies always talk about stillness. They talk about being centered. This doesn't mean that you stop living. It doesn't mean that you be quiet. It doesn't mean that you sit there and don't say anything because you're afraid that if you say something, you'll look like an idiot. That's not what it means. Being centered and being still means that you're in the center of your spine where the stillness is. When you are centered in those high frequencies where we really are, then when you start peering out your eyes out into the world, you're in command of what's going on. It's only when we're out in the outer wobble of our life that things become confused. Don't panic. Don't push harder. Breathe deep. When things start looking like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, don't stop and become like a deer in the headlight, because everybody knows it. You don't have to be obvious that you're breathing. Just pull in. Just like that, just like it sounds. Pull your attention and your breath and condense it into the spine. And once you're in there, you'll start to feel comfortable again. It's that simple. Condensing breathing works like magic.